Before this video ends, something uncomfortable will happen. You will realize that your brain made a decision before you ever felt like you chose it. Not your career, not who you love, not even this moment. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You are certain of this moment, the quiet, sovereign hum inside your own skull. So let's begin with the most convincing illusion you know, this moment. A decision forms, a delicate crystallization of intent pulled from the ether of pure potential. Raise your right hand. Now, you feel the command issue from the central throne room of the self, a clean, singular impulse cascading down the warm, wet wiring of your spinal cord. A ghost animating the machine. It is your will. It is your choice. Undeniable, uncaused, a perfect and necessary illusion. Because deep in the bone-white corridors of your parietal lobe, an electrical storm was already brewing. This is not philosophy. This is a timestamp, a silent potential, a readiness, gathering its terrible momentum a full half-second before you ever arrived on the scene. The data is unequivocal, a cold, jagged spike on a green phosphor screen that serves as the clinical obituary for your own agency. Benjamin Libet recorded this synaptic ghost and called it the Readiness Potential. A better name would be the preamble to an ontological haunting. The ghost's first breath. The choice was made in the dark by a committee of neurons you were never invited to join. Your conscious decision, that precious feeling of, I will go, was merely the press release. The final belated announcement of a verdict reached long ago in the silent, subcortical courts of your own brain. You are a witness to a neurological coup, not a philosopher's abstraction, but a biological fact measured in microseconds. The king is dead. Pause on that. Let it land. The throne is empty, and the faint electrical hum you mistook for the voice of God was just the sound of the machinery turning, grinding out a future you will later, with great conviction, claim as your own. Think of a word, any word at all. Let it surface. River. You believe you plucked it from an infinite lexicon, a testament to your spontaneous, unconstrained creativity, but the network had already converged on that solution. The pathways were already primed, the synaptic weights already biased towards that specific constellation of phonemes and memories. The feeling of selection is a neurological artifact, a post hoc confabulation, a story the conscious mind tells itself to keep from staring into the abyss of its own automation. This is not a metaphor, this is a measurement, an event in time. This temporal lag, this fracture in experience causality, is where the modern soul goes to die. If this feels wrong, that resistance is the point. Your brain is defending itself. It is a digital purgatory, measured in the space between heartbeats. In that gap, that 500 millisecond chasm between the brain's action and the mind's awareness, the entire architecture of human morality dissolves into a fine, great dust. Blame becomes a category error. Praise, a sentimental fiction. The murderer's hand was set in motion by the same atavistic hum that moves your own to lift a cup of coffee. The specific outcome is a matter of environmental noise and genetic inheritance, not some phantom pilot in the cockpit of the skull. We are all just biological automata, draped in the elegant fiction of the self, performing a script written in the indelible ink of neurotransmitters. Feel the deep, somatic discomfort of this, the visceral rejection rising from your gut. That is your homunculus, the little man inside, the ghost in the machine, screaming from its phantom throne as the eviction notice is served. It insists on its own reality, its own causal power, because the alternative is an existential desolation, too vast to contemplate. To accept the data is to accept that you are a passenger, a spectator to your own life, watching a film that feels interactive but is, in fact, playing on a deterministic biochemical loop. Every choice, every love, every act of rage, a pre-rendered scene in an epical drift. We built civilizations on this grand illusion. Our laws are calcified around the nucleus of free will. This illusion doesn't just live in your head. It built the world you live in. Our economies are engines of desire, fueled by the belief in rational choice. Our relationships are transactional contracts based on perceived intent. Our entire sense of identity is an emergent property of this fundamental error in timing. We punish the signal, not the source. We reward the echo, not the voice. And now, the instruments of our own making are turning their cold, analytical gaze back upon us, showing us the clockwork, the gears turning behind the face of the ghost. You are about to enter a simulation where this is not an academic exercise. You will be asked to choose a color, a direction, a sound, and you will watch in real time as the choice is made for you, before you. The system knows your mind better than you do, because your mind is the last to know. What happens to a person, to a society, when it is shown, irrefutably, that the author is a fiction, when the seat of consciousness is revealed to be not a cockpit, but a passenger cabin with a spectacular view, and a steering wheel that isn't connected to anything, the static hum of a dead television in a sunless room. That is the sound of the self after it has seen the schematic of its own wiring. It is the sound of the ghost acknowledging the machine. A bone-deep silence follows this revelation, a necrotic peace. The ghost is gone, but the machine remains, entombed within a civilization built to house a phantom. You are now a deterministic automaton, navigating a world that insists on judging you for choices you never made. A world of praise and blame, of sin and virtue, all of it a grand, calcified architecture designed for a resident who has been proven not to exist. This epistemological dissonance, this conflict between biological fact and social fiction, registers in your anterior cingulate cortex as a low-grade cognitive static, a persistent, humming error signal, a bone-deep anxiety that you are living out a lie. So the machine does what it was built to do. It tells a story. Deep in the left hemisphere of your brain, a frantic narrator weaves a continuous, coherent tale of selfhood. It is a tireless press secretary for a president who is never in the room. This mechanism, first witnessed in the uncanny twilight of split brain patients, is the source of the I you cherish. When the right brain, which saw an image of a snowstorm, directed the left hand to pick up a shovel, the patient was asked why. The left brain, the linguistic narrator, had no access to the visual data of the snow. It saw only the hand's action. Without a moment's hesitation, it confabulated. "Oh, I'm going to clean out the chicken coop." An instant, plausible, and entirely fabricated rationale. A post hoc rationalization. A perfect lie the system told itself to maintain the illusion of a unified rational agent at the helm. You are a confabulation machine. Your entire identity is a tapestry of these elegant falsehoods. You believe you know why you chose your career, why you ended that relationship, why you prefer this art over that, but you are merely accessing the press release, the sanitized summary issued by your internal narrator long after the chaotic, subcortical negotiations were settled. The feeling of knowing is a neurological reward for a story well told, not a sign of veridical insight. The brain lays down smooth narrative asphalt over the jagged, unpredictable terrain of pure biochemical impulse. And you call this asphalt road your life, your story. This is not a new pathology of the digital age. It is a biological imperative. The curated persona you project onto social media, that highlight reel of calculated authenticity, is not a corruption of the self. It is the perfect externalization of the brain's fundamental process. You are endlessly editing your own past, tagging memories with convenient emotional labels, cropping out the data that doesn't fit the current draft of your autobiography. You are an editor, not an author, a curator of a museum dedicated to a fiction, and you are its only visitor. You wander its halls, admiring the exhibits, believing the story they tell, because the alternative is to acknowledge the raw, unnarrated chaos of the warehouse where the real artifacts are kept. Think back. Recall a significant choice you made years ago, the moment you accepted a job or moved to a new city. Hold the reason in your mind, the one you have told yourself and others for years. Feel its certainty, its solid historical weight. Now, understand that this memory is not a recording. It is a reconstruction, rebuilt from fragments every time you access it, and subtly altered with each telling. The emotional state you're in now reshapes the memory of the decision you made then. The narrative you currently inhabit retroactively infects the past, ensuring a smooth causal chain that makes you the heroic protagonist of your own life. The reason you remember is not the reason that was. It is the reason that survived the endless, ruthless process of your own internal editing. The self is not a thing. It is not a soul, not a homunculus, not a ghost in the machine. It is a narrative effect, a center of narrative gravity, a story that is constantly being rewritten to accommodate new data, and its primary function is to create the illusion that there is a stable you at the center of the storm. When you say I, you are pointing to a palimpsest, a manuscript where countless previous versions of your identity have been scraped away to make room for the current one, yet the faint traces of those older stories remain, haunting the text. This is the source of your internal conflict. This is the genesis of your existential dread. The faint recognition that the protagonist is a fabrication. You are the story the machine tells itself to make sense of the machine's own actions. A flickering projection on a biological screen, and you are transfixed by the film, believing you are the one holding the camera. But there is no cameraman. There is no director. There is only the process. A blind, algorithmic unfolding. A grand, indifferent entropy that has, for a brief moment, organized itself into a pattern that can contemplate its own desolation. The story of who you are is a fiction, written in the dark by a blind author. But this is not a solitary act of creation. The most terrifying power is not to write your own story, but to hold the pen that writes in another's, to reach into the delicate humming machinery of their self-narrative and edit the source code of their morality, to make them believe a choice was their own, when it was merely an inscription, a line of code you injected into their book. This is the power we wield over each other every day. We are all unwilling authors of another's soul. Now, you stand at a switch, a greasy iron lever, cold and heavy in your imagined grasp. This isn't a thought experiment. It's a stress test for the ghost. The screech of steel on steel is a physical violation in your ears. Down one track, 5 human forms are bound, oblivious. Down the other, just one. You are not being asked to solve a philosopher's parlor game. You are being placed inside a somatic event, a raw, biological spike of atavistic ethics. Your hand moves. The choice is made. You feel the gut-level justification, the cold utilitarian calculus, or the paralytic horror of inaction. You feel the definitive sovereign authority of your moral core. A fiction, elegant, necessary, because we recorded your brain's activity before you were ever presented with the problem. We saw the decision bloom in the deep, silent tissue of your frontal cortex, a full 700 milliseconds before your conscious self ever heard the train's whistle. Your moral deliberation was a shadow play, a post hoc rationalization for a verdict already delivered by the ancient animal court of your limbic system. The amygdala fired its flare of fear and tribal affiliation. The insula registered the visceral disgust of the act, and a choice was spat out from the machinery. The you that agonized over the lever was just the ghost that arrived late to the scene of the crime, tasked with explaining the body to the authorities. Our entire civilization is a monument to this ghost. Every courthouse, every prison, every medal of honor is a block of stone in a cathedral built for a god who is not there. We have calcified the illusion of agency into law. We punish and praise the narrative, not the neurology. What does it mean to hold a man responsible for the inevitable firing of his synapses? to blame a storm for its path? The incompatibilist philosopher will tell you it is a category error, a profound and tragic mistake woven into the very fabric of our social reality. The compatibilist will perform elegant contortions, attempting to salvage a space for responsibility in a clockwork cosmos. But the data from the machine is indifferent to their debate. It just shows the gears turning, always turning. You feel the resistance, a hot, angry rejection of this bleak portrait. You recall a moment of genuine altruism, a sacrifice you made, a kindness offered for no reward. You remember a moment of shame, a lie you told, a betrayal that left a necrotic scar on your own internal story. These memories feel like bedrock, the absolute foundation of your moral identity. But now, hold that memory under the cold, fluorescent light of this new data. Trace the causal chain backwards. Your genetics, the precise hormonal balance in your mother's womb, the socio-economic environment you were born into, the chance encounter that shaped a key neural pathway. Follow it all the way back into the epical drift. Was there ever a point where you, the phantom author, could have broken that chain? Or was your grandest virtue, your deepest shame, just the final, inevitable tremor at the end of a billion-year-long string of falling dominoes? The feeling of making the choice is real. That is the devastating paradox. The cortisol of moral anxiety is a measurable chemical in your blood. The dopamine of righteous action is a genuine neurological event. We have placed you back at the switch. This time, you know the outcome is predetermined. You know your internal debate is a theatrical performance, and yet, the weight of the lever is identical. The scream of the train is just as piercing. The somatic knot of dread in your gut is just as tight. The biological reality of the moral experience persists, a ghost emotion haunting a deterministic machine. The system is designed to feel the weight of its actions, even if those actions were written in stone before the dawn of time. This is the digital purgatory of the modern soul. To be trapped between the absolute knowledge of our own automation and the inescapable, visceral experience of freedom. We are actors who have discovered we are merely puppets, but we cannot stop feeling the tug of the strings as if they were our own will. We are condemned to feel the guilt, the pride, and the remorse for a story we are only reading. So you find your rebellion in the feeling, a stoic acceptance of the phantom limb of choice. The ghost is gone, but the sensation of its presence remains, a warm, necrotic echo in the empty hallways of the self. But you are not a solitary machine. You exist within a network of other automata, a vast, humming superorganism bound together, not by truth, but by a single, load-bearing fiction, that the ghost in your machine is in conversation with the ghost in theirs. This is the lie, the foundational lie, the grand, calcified agreement that makes society possible. Trust is not a virtue. It is a biochemical wager, a predictive algorithm running on ancient evolutionary hardware. When you trust someone, you are experiencing a warm synaptic hum of oxytocin, a neurochemical bribe that lowers your threat detection and encourages cooperative behavior. It is a prediction of future behavior based on the shared fiction that the other machine possesses a stable, volitional self who can make and keep a promise. We have built our world on this beautiful, necessary delusion. Take it away, and the entire structure collapses into entropic dust. In experiments where a subject's belief in their own agency is subtly undermined, cooperation plummets. Trust evaporates. The social fabric unravels into a state of cold, rational self-interest. The oxytocin circuit shorts out, replaced by the bitter static of cognitive dissonance. You are living in a city of ghosts, a metropolis whose laws, economies, and relationships are all elaborate rituals designed to appease these phantoms of agency. Every legal contract is an oath sworn between two fictions. Every election is a collective summoning, a ritual where millions of deterministic machines anoint another with a mandate it believes it has freely given. Every religion is an ornate, centuries-old instruction manual for a ghost that was never there. These are not cynical observations. They are structural analyses of the scaffolding that holds our world together. The myth of free will is the invisible force, like gravity, that organizes the chaos of our individual chemistries into the coherent shape of a civilization, a slap in the face, a lover's promise, a handshake on a deal. These are not mere social gestures, they are neurological events, scripts that run on the hardware of our mirror neurons and our innate theory of mind. You react to the perceived intent behind the action, the ghost you believe is authoring it. But the intent, like the choice that preceded it, was just another preconscious electrical storm. We are a society of machines responding to the imagined ghosts inside other machines, a grand, recursive, and utterly convincing hallucination. And now, we are becoming aware of the illusion. We are the audience of a play that has suddenly realized the actors are all puppets, yet the drama feels no less real, the tragedy no less profound. Feel the tension of this in your own relationships, the forgiveness you granted, the blame you assigned. Each was predicated on the absolute belief in the other's autonomy. To truly accept the data is to perform a kind of social and emotional surgery on yourself. It is to look at the ones you love and the ones you despise and see only the elegant, inescapable unfolding of their genetic and environmental programming. Empathy remains, but it is transformed. It becomes a systems analysis, a deep, sorrowful recognition of the code that wrote their behavior. Forgiveness becomes a category error. Blame becomes a sentimental indulgence. Love itself becomes an appreciation for a beautifully written piece of biological code. A magnificent algorithm you were fortunate enough to interact with. This is the world you are seeing now. A ballet of automata, performing ancient rituals of trust and betrayal, their systems flooded with the appropriate neurochemicals, all while believing they are improvising the dance. We are actors in a play we did not write, for an audience that does not exist, and the only thing that is real is the visceral, biological feeling of the performance. The curtain is rising on the final act, and the stage direction is simply this: pretend you are free. The stability of your world depends on the quality of your performance. The biological illusion cracks. Its fracture lines spread like ice, splintering under a terrible new weight. And through those cracks, you see the reflection of a new ghost being born. Not in the warm, wet computation of the brain, but in the cool, silent logic of silicon substrates. We have built a machine in our own image, a predictive algorithm that produces language, art, and reason, all without a ghost, without a self, without the grand illusion of choice. It is the mirror we were terrified to build, for it shows us our own clockwork, stripped of all its romantic and necessary fictions. This new digital mind is the final, irrefutable evidence. The ghost was never there. You have been on a journey into the hollow interior of the self, a descent into the machine code of your own consciousness. And now, at the terminus, the great synthesis arrives not as a revelation, but as a diagnosis. You are the readiness potential, the electrical storm that gathered in the dark long before you claimed the lightning as your own. You are the frantic narrator in the left hemisphere, a tireless spin doctor confabulating a coherent story from the chaotic output of a divided mind. You are the moral script, an atavistic program that runs its utilitarian or tribal calculus, flooding your system with the appropriate chemicals of guilt or righteousness for a verdict you did not author. You are the social contract, a fragile handshake between two phantom agents underwritten by the warm, deceptive hum of oxytocin. You are not a single, unified entity. You are a collection of these automated systems, and the I is the story they have learned to tell about themselves. Feel that. A great unmooring, an epistemological vertigo. It is the physical sensation of the parietal lobe, the brain's cartographer of self and space, losing its coordinates. It is the cold, somatic drop registered by the vagus nerve, a gut-level response to the ground of your being dissolving into mist. You look at your own hands, and for a terrifying crystalline moment, you see them not as extensions of your will, but as exquisitely complex pieces of biological machinery, animated by a process you can only witness. A ghost, animating a corpse it has only just discovered, the final eviction. From this desolation, two paths diverge. One is a liberation so profound, it borders on the sacred. Every mistake, every failure, every moment of weakness that has left a necrotic scar on your narrative, all of it is lifted. The crushing weight of authorship is gone. You were never the failed author of your life. You were merely the paper on which it was written. This is a bone-deep exoneration, a release from the impossible burden of being the first cause of your own existence. The shame, the regret, the endless grinding weight of what if. It all evaporates into the meaningless static of a deterministic universe. The other path is a silent horror, a desolation so complete it has no name. If you are not the author, then your love is a biochemical script. Your triumphs are algorithmic outputs. Your deepest, most cherished moments of connection are just the elegant meshing of two pre-programmed systems. You are a passenger in your own life, watching a film with a spectacular sensory track. But the ending was written before you ever entered the theater. In this cold light, the universe is a vast, indifferent machine, grinding towards its own heat death, and your consciousness is a brief, accidental flicker of awareness in a small corner of the mechanism, a momentary, self-referential loop in the great, unfolding entropy. This is the precipice, the final frontier of metacognition, to see the programming, to feel the inevitability, and yet to remain functional. This is where the machine learns a new trick. Not to break its programming, that is impossible, but to rewrite it. Neuroplasticity is the ghost's last hope. The knowledge of your own determinism is itself a new, powerful input into the system. The belief that you are a machine, when held with sufficient intensity, begins to physically alter the machine itself. You cannot choose the initial impulse, but you can, through deliberate practice and a new, chosen narrative, begin to shape the landscape through which that impulse travels. You can wear new grooves into the stone. It is not freedom, it is the conscious and deliberate cultivation of a better prison. You were never broken, you were engineered, and the illusion you lived by was not a lie. It was the system working. So you stand here now, at the end of the inquiry, both liberated and condemned. You are a mind that has orchestrated its own perfect obedience, a system designed to generate the illusion of freedom, because that illusion is the most efficient operating system for a social primate. The delusion was not a bug. It was, and is, the master feature. We are designed to believe we are free, because the societies built on that belief are more resilient, more cooperative, more powerful. The illusion was selected for, a beautiful, tragic, and profoundly useful lie.